All right, then. Are you ready to dive into the world of Viennese operetta with me today?
Always. Let's do it.
Okay, because today we're taking on Die Fledermaus, Johann Strauss II's masterpiece.
The Bat.
Yeah.
The Bat. Which, I mean, talk about a title that just lets you know you're in for a wild ride. Mistaken identities, playful revenge, and of course, you know I can't forget those iconic Strauss waltzes.
You know me way too well. You sent over some excerpts from the Die Fledermaus Wikipedia page, super helpful, and that little snippet of the Champagne song lyrics, well, let's just say I'm ready to be transported.
And transported you will be.
But before we start popping bottles, what is it about this particular operetta that makes it so special?
You know, it's funny because for such a lighthearted romp, and it premiered in 1874, by the way, it actually started its life pretty far from those grand ballrooms of Vienna. Think Germany, a farce called Das Gefängnis.
Hold on, Das Gefängnis, that means the prison, right? From prison to parties, how did that even happen?
Well, it's all about adaptation. That German play, the focus was really on this theme of playful revenge, you know. Well, it got adapted into a French vaudeville production called Le Réveillon. Think New Year's Eve celebration.
Ah, so instead of grim prison walls, we're suddenly in Paris, swirling with waltzes and champagne.
You got it. But it gets even more interesting. Before Strauss even enters the picture, that French play, it gets translated back into German by this guy, Karl Hafner.
Back to German.
Back to German. But he doesn't just stop there. He cleverly moves the whole setting to a Viennese ball, you know, a world Strauss's audience would have known like the back of their hands.
Talk about setting the stage for the Waltz King. But to go from a play to a full-blown operetta, that takes some serious work, right? Who else was involved in bringing Die Fledermaus to life?
Okay, so that's where this very talented playwright and composer Richard Genet comes into the picture.
Okay.
This guy's task was no joke. He had to take this translated play and refine it, basically mold it into a proper libretto, you know, complete with these witty verses that would fit Strauss's music perfectly.
It's already a real collaborative effort. But let's get back to Strauss. It's 1874. Vienna's like the epicenter of the music world. What was the premiere of Die Fledermaus like?
Okay, so picture this. Grand Theater under Wien, buzzing with anticipation. Strauss, already a celebrity at this point, by the way. He takes the podium to conduct.
Wow.
And as the curtain rises, the audience, they're transported to this world, this blend of, you know, those farcical situations with these moments of real emotion, and all of it is set to this unbelievably vibrant, joyous music.
I bet. So how did Vienna respond? Was it an instant hit?
You know, it definitely charmed Viennese audiences, but its journey to international fame, well, that had a few bumps along the road.
Really?
It did eventually make it to Paris, but for some reason, the producers, they tried to rename it La Tzigane, which basically means the gypsy.
The gypsy. Why try to fix what isn't broken?
Exactly. It wasn't until they went back to the original story, you know, using the characters' real names and making the dialogue fit Strauss's music, that's when Paris really embraced Die Fledermaus, like 1904.
Wow, 1904. That's a long time. I mean, it's been performed consistently since then.
Oh, for sure. It took flight and landed in opera houses worldwide. London, New York. I mean, Die Fledermaus became a staple. And it makes sense. It's witty, it's charming, and it really allows Strauss's unbelievable talent for melody to just shine.
It's pretty amazing how these three traditions, German, French, and of course Viennese, all came together like that. But before we get too caught up in the history of it all, I kind of want to meet these characters.
Let's meet them.
Okay, so who are we dealing with here?
Well, you've got Gabriel von Eisenstein. He's our mischievous gentleman who kind of sets this whole plot in motion.
Yeah.
This is a guy who has a real knack for getting himself into these ridiculous situations, usually because of something he's done, of course.
Sounds like everyone in this operetta has a mischievous side, huh?
Oh, you're catching on quick. Then there's Rosalind, Eisenstein's wife. She's sharp as a tack, quick-witted, not one to be messed with. And trust me, she's more than ready to teach her sometimes foolish husband a lesson.
And where does Adele, the clever maid, fit into all of this? I hear she's got ambitions beyond just serving tea.
Adele. Oh, she's great. Her journey to Prince Orlovsky's ball, it really highlights how resourceful she is and her own brand of mischief. And of course, we can't forget Dr. Falk, the mastermind behind this whole charade. Remember that bat costume? He's out for a little playful revenge for a prank Eisenstein played on him.
Okay, that bat costume definitely needs further explanation. But first, something you mentioned earlier. Eisenstein, his role, it was written for a tenor, but now it's usually sung by a baritone. How did that happen?
It's such an interesting little quirk of opera history. Back then, vocal ranges, they weren't seen as so rigid, But over time, casting a baritone, someone with that often roguish charm, it just became the tradition. And it really does fit Eisenstein's character perfectly, don't you think?
Totally. I love how casting choices can totally change the feeling of a story. And speaking of, what about Prince Orlovsky? What makes this character so intriguing?
Ugh. Prince Orlovsky. They are extravagance personified. Bored noble. Throws these lavish parties, moves through the world with an air of mystery. The role is often sung by a mezzo-soprano, which adds another layer to it, don't you think?
A woman playing a man? No, that's a plot twist. It seems like Die Fledermaus is full of them. Speaking of, how about we grab our metaphorical champagne glasses and head into Act 1, where the real fun begins?
Let's do it. Act 1. It really is all about setting the stage for the chaos to come, wouldn't you say? Like Strauss is laying out this giant game board, and each character is a piece about to get moved into a hilariously compromising position.
And like any good game, you need players willing to bend the rules a little bit, or a lot. That's where Adele's forged invitation to Prince Orlovsky's ball comes in, right?
Exactly. That invitation that she claims is from her sister, but really orchestrated by Dr. Falk. That's what sets our game of mistaken identities into motion.
But Rosalind, always the watchful wife, she's not about to let Adele just waltz off to a party while her husband is supposedly off to prison.
And this is where Strauss brings in this wonderful trio into the score.
A trio.
A trio. Eisenstein, pretending to be all heartbroken about going to prison, sings this grand, sorrowful piece with Adele and Rosalind.
Wait, so a trio, is that like an actual musical term that has a specific meaning in opera?
Good question. Yeah, a trio in opera is exactly what it sounds like. 3 singers come together in a single musical number, usually to express these intertwined emotions or motivations. And in this case, it's brilliant. It lets the audience in on Eisenstein's little deception while everyone around him is still totally clueless.
Oh, the layers of deception. Poor Rosalind, totally unaware of what's really going on. She's left all alone while her husband slips off to enjoy himself.
And into this void of male attention steps Rosalind's old flame, Alfred.
Alfred?
Ready to rekindle that old romance, completely unaware of Eisenstein's existence.
Talk about awkward timing. But wait, it gets even better because now Frank, the prison governor, he shows up ready to escort Eisenstein to his cell.
Right. Can you imagine his surprise when he finds Alfred, who in a moment of either panic or maybe just very misplaced chivalry, agrees to serve Eisenstein's sentence?
And just like that, we've got our first case of truly mistaken identity. The way Strauss uses music to underscore the humor in these situations, it's just brilliant. Those soaring waltzes, set against these characters' ridiculous predicaments.
Oh, for sure. And as Act 1 comes to a close, the music sweeps us away from Rosalind's place and right into Prince Orlovsky's extravagant ball.
From prison cell to a palace, what a jump. And with everyone in disguise, Act 2 is just going to be a whirlwind of mistaken identities and champagne-fueled shenanigans. What about Dr. Falk? How does he orchestrate everything from this point?
Oh, he's not just an observer in this whole prank. He's an active participant, making sure everyone at that ball plays their part to expose Eisenstein. He's like the conductor of this whole comedic symphony.
Okay, I love that. So how do these unsuspecting party guests get caught up in his web of trickery?
Well, you got Rosalind disguised as this mysterious Hungarian countess, Eisenstein hiding behind the skies of Marquis Renard, and Frank, the prison governor. He's now this dashing Chevalier Chagrin.
It's almost impossible to keep track.
Right. And then add in Adele, dressed up in one of Rosalind's gowns, pretending to be an actress. And, well, you've got yourself a recipe for delightful confusion. Especially when Eisenstein takes an interest in Adele, completely unaware that he's flirting with his own maid.
The irony. I bet Strauss's music just heightens those moments of mistaken identity in those crazy encounters.
Absolutely, yeah. The music does a lot of the heavy lifting here, reflecting those shifting emotions. The waltz, it's a dance known for those swirling turns and the intimacy, right? And it becomes this metaphor for the relationships and all the miscommunication happening.
And amidst all of this, you've got Prince Orlovsky just presiding over this lavish party with this, air of amused detachment. They're actually enjoying the chaos.
Oh, Prince Orlovsky, such a fascinating character. Yeah. They really do represent that weird thing about wealth and boredom, finding amusement in everyone else's little flaws, jaded, but also kind of captivated by the spectacle of it all, especially when there's champagne involved.
Speaking of champagne, let's talk about the musical moment of Act 2, the one everyone waits for, the champagne song. I have to admit, seeing those German lyrics you sent over really made me want to know more.
Im Feuerstrom der Reben. Right. It's got to be one of the most recognizable and celebratory melodies in all of operettas. But it's not just about enjoying a glass of bubbly.
What's going on beneath the surface then?
Remember how we were talking about those layers of meaning? On one level, yeah, it's this joyous toast to the good life, indulgence, letting loose. But it also speaks to this desire for escape, you know, this yearning to break free from all those societal constraints, themes that I think still resonate today.
Oh, absolutely. Makes you want to raise a glass and join the party. But for our characters, the clock is about to strike 6, which means the consequences of their actions are about to come knocking.
And we're about to go from this glittering ballroom to, well, a very different setting.
We're going to prison, aren't we?
We're going to prison.
From a palace to a prison, talk about a change of scenery. I'm guessing those champagne hangovers are about to hit everyone full force.
Oh, yeah. Act 3 takes us from the heights of that party to, well, the cold, hard truth of a hangover, both literally and, figuratively. Remember Alfred, the guy who took the fall for Eisenstein?
Poor Alfred, stuck in Eisenstein's place.
He's, he's not having the most relaxing time, let's just say that.
Yeah.
Imagine a chorus of grumpy prisoners, all subjected to Alfred's constant operatic singing.
Oh, no.
But this is where Adele sees an opportunity.
Adele always has a plan.
She heads straight to the prison,
Yeah.
right? And she wants to convince Frank, who's still pretending to be that rich Chevalier Chagrin, to sponsor her, her acting career.
Oh, this is too perfect.
She has no idea that her would-be benefactor is actually the one who put her employer in prison.
The irony, this whole thing just keeps getting more and more tangled. But I have a feeling that once Eisenstein gets to the prison himself, things are really going to explode.
Oh, you know it. Imagine this. Eisenstein strolls into prison, ready to serve his time, and suddenly he discovers someone claiming to be him is already locked up.
Oh, no.
And to make matters worse, Frank, he starts recounting how he saw this Eisenstein showering Rosalind with affection.
Talk about adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
What does Eisenstein even do?
Oh, he is ready to confront this imposter. He borrows Dr. Blind's wig and glasses as a disguise, and he's got this whole plan to expose Alfred. But Rosalind, she's nobody's fool.
I bet. Rosalind always gets her moment.
She shows up at the prison, and she's ready to set the record straight.
Yeah.
And as those layers of disguise start to come off, the truth just comes spilling out in this hilarious, crescendo of confessions. And that's where Die Fledermaus, it reminds us that even with all this chaos, forgiveness, and laughter, they can win in the end.
It really is a story about just how messy relationships can be, Mistaken identities, this playful revenge, it all comes back to those things we can all relate to.
Totally. Dr. Falke steps forward, reveals his whole plan, admits the whole charade was revenge for that bat costume prank.
The bat finally shows its true colors. So how does it all end? Can everyone just laugh it off after a night like that?
After Eisenstein offers some very heartfelt apologies, Rosalind forgives his little attempt at infidelity.
Of course.
Prince Orlovsky, being the generous soul they are, decides to sponsor Adele's acting career.
Adele gets what she wants.
Right. And Dr. Falk, well, he gets to just sit back and enjoy the success of his perfectly planned prank.
It's the happy ending we were all hoping for. Die Fledermaus, I think it really reminds us that life, much like this operetta, is best handled with a bit of lightheartedness and a whole lot of forgiveness. We've gone through the origins of this classic, we've met those crazy characters, we even uncovered some hidden depths in the Champagne song. But before we go, one last question. Why do you think, after all these years, Die Fledermaus is still so popular?
I think it's because beneath all the waltzes in the Champagne Die Fledermaus, it's like this mirror,
Oh.
reflecting our own lives back at us. We all wear masks. We all want to connect with people. And sometimes a little forgiveness is really all it takes to fix things.
Beautifully put. It's a great reminder that embracing those crazy, absurd moments in life with a little humor and maybe a little forgiveness, it can make all the difference. So next time you find yourself in a situation where you're like, wait, what's even happening right now? Here, remember the lessons of Die Fledermaus? It might just inspire you to stir up a little harmless mischief of your own.